Hello, um, this is Mr. Eric Valentine. He's my coordinating educator at Lynn McKinley, and yeah, so this is like an interview. So I'm gonna ask questions. He's just gonna answer them.
Okay.
So the first one is what pathway do you teach here?
So we have the A5 horticulture and the A6 natural resource. We also have the animal science as well, A3.
All right, and how on average, like how many hours do you like work every week?
Well over 40,
Yeah.
close to probably 80 or more.
So how long have you been like in this career?
18 years.
18 years. And why'd you choose it?
I had two really good ag teachers that kind of fostered the love for the pathway and chose to go down that direction. I always knew I wanted to do something with teaching and education, and this was just kind of the path that I chose once I kind of refined it going into high school.
That's okay. So, like, how do you balance like this work, like your job, and like your family life?
That's a really great question. Yeah, I think that's a question that even teachers that are in there close to 30 years, they still struggle with. And that's something that we we got to find that balance, and it's sometimes it's hard to do. I'm not sure any ag teacher's really good at it, to be honest with you. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've had some conversations over the last couple of years with some predominant older teachers about it, and it's something they still struggle with as well. So I don't know if I have a really good answer about that, but you just got to find some time for yourself, and you got to find the things that get you through some of the stressful moments, and set that time aside so that you can recoup and refocus to come back.
Do you like set like work aside for, like, do you like work like throughout the week and just like have like weekends to yourself, or do you also work like on the weekends?
So no, I mean there's stuff over the weekends because of the situation we have here with offsite production. We're pretty much on call 24/7. There's times that we're coming in on Sunday mornings before going to church or after church, and something breaks Saturday night in the middle of the morning. Alarm goes off, and you got to come in and deal with that. So that's kind of unique. Not every program is set up that way, but ours is. Some programs are pretty strict with that timeline, and if you don't have extra activities, the school doesn't allow you in the building. So for us, we want to have as many activities for our students here. So it's something that we've created. We got to live with the result of that, which is we're on call basically 24/7.
Okay. And what do you think that this profession will look like in the next 15 years?
A lot more science, computer-based, simplified more with just the technology, with where we're going with asynchronous education and autonomous vehicles, and how that's connecting back to ag. I really think the technology piece and strong with the science piece is going to be much more greater. As far as the individual programs go, I've said this pretty strongly over the last few years. I don't see the growth in the rural continuing too much longer. It's really going to be more in that urban setting as we continue to grow our urban programs.
Yeah, and expand. Yeah, okay. What are some important characteristics of an effective educator? Like that, I guess, like that you think.
Definitely firm, fair, and consistent. That's something I definitely live by. My students will tell you, the staff will tell you. However, firm, fair, and consistent isn't necessarily equal, and it's definitely not a balanced approach. What's one day firm with one situation, maybe next day can't. You got to really take in the social social side of the particular student and take that into account while still holding that firm line of your boundaries and standards that you expect for all your students. So you want to take for account, that student and who they are, and meet them where they're at, in that family situation where they're at as well, and especially in a situation like the urban setting.
Right. Yeah. Especially in urban setting. So what do you think it means to be a professional? Like your own, definition.
Showing up, that's a large part of it right there. When we show up, the students understand that you are for real, you mean the business. As far as going down the line with the students, they want to know that you're real. They want to know that you're going to be here if they need something. Now that doesn't mean that you're dropping your family and doing everything with them, but there's certain times where you've got to put more emphasis on your students. Whether that's sitting at a hospital with a student until 5 a.m. in the morning and taking them home because a parent didn't show up, and that happened a couple falls ago, or it's giving a ride to a kid because they don't have a ride, or just like earlier this morning we had a student with no shoes and or holes in her shoes where her toes were sticking out, and we're lucky here in our situation with multiple programming where we're just able to go pull out a pair of 12 size shoes and give it to her. So that's part of the professionalism that I think people sometimes forget. You gotta have the human side.
Yeah.
Working with staff members of all different backgrounds, diversities, knowledge, and kind of meeting them in the middle, even though we don't maybe see eye to eye on everything. We got to find that middle ground in order to find a path forward for success.
Right. Okay. That's a very good answer. So what are some things that you wish you could change about your job, or the career in general?
Well, as far as the job goes, I think that every teacher would tell you they're under-resourced. There's definitely some things here that we are very under-resourced, but on the same point, there's some things here that we have that other programs would love to have. So I think finding the continuity between multiple working parts in a large district like this, that everybody's on the same page, is something we've struggled with over the last 5 years. You've got change of leadership, department heads changes, building administration changes, and then you got to be able to matriculate and work through those changes in order to keep your program moving. And when you have, different departments thinking different things, and then your peers that are at different levels for the elementary and middle school level doing different things, there's a lot of back and forth that really could be isolated and better controlled if there was a central hub kind of more running the show versus multiple people trying to coordinate with all of us here. So as far as the career goes, I'd really like to see that all teachers have, we go back to the 90s platform where all teachers had extended service contracts, whether they're in an urban district or they're in a large rural district, whether it's 30 hours or 30 days or 60 days that it used to be. Kind of should develop basically on the situation of the program, where the program's at, their size and mass, the activities that they do throughout the year. But to continuously ask teachers to go above and beyond their contractual contracts and spend time outside of that, away from their families, without compensation is just not professional in any way from a state standpoint or a school district standpoint. So that's one thing that I would definitely want to see changed. We talk about how do we keep these teachers, especially the young teachers in the profession, especially the that younger generation, after 3, 4, 5 years, when families start to we start to see some of those teachers start to matriculate out. And you have some of those matriculations that naturally happen because of performances and not being able to meet it in the classroom, or something else may happen. But we've got to take care of what we can control, and if we take care of our people, the people will take care of the programs and lead this thing in the future. Right now, over the last decade or so, we've gone away from that. Actually, the last 2 decades, and we started taking that funding away. And then the state incorporated the 5th quarter grant, and that was kind of good for a while, but then now everybody seems to be on it, so the money's basically a little, here's a check is what it kind of seems like, to keep you happy, but it doesn't even cover more than 2 days of activities for some teachers, so it's frustrating. We've got to take care of that moving forward.
Yeah, teachers are important. So the last question, what words of wisdom could you share with me that's like interested in this career, and like it's like currently like learning and trying to understand more about ed in general?
Definitely, you want to come out of college with a broad spectrum of knowledge. I think some of our teachers come out with education focus only, and then they get into the classroom and they don't know how to talk about animals. That's a part of their AF&R standards. They don't know how to talk about plants. That's a part of their AF&R standards. They can talk about the basic biology because they've taken the basic biology in class at Ohio State or the other programs, but outside of that, can you get really in depth? And when we start talking about the STEM programs that are all in depth, and when you've got to really dive into the genetics and the science and math behind it, I just see teachers coming out that are not prepared for that, and they've got to go through PD or additional training afterwards to get that, and it's kind of unfortunate because they really should have that coming out. I didn't really kind of go through the natural progression during my time at Ohio State, and I went down an animal science track at one point. I went down a plant science track, horticulture and crop science to be exact path. I went down a sports path at one point, and I came out with a much more diverse track that supported my education side. Also the extension side on top of the education side, I was able to gain as well. It took me a couple extra years to get through all that, but I came out better prepared. I feel that's led to greater success for me versus some of my peers. We look at, my cohort. There's only 2 of us that are still teaching today, and both of us were in multiple paths at one point throughout our college. Both of us were animal science. Both of us went through horticulture and crop science at one point. And she's still teaching in Northeast Ohio, and I'm here in Central Ohio still teaching. So I think being more rounded, to kind of sum it up, with our backgrounds of what we have training-wise, is definitely something I would give words of advice to all teachers coming out of the program.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. We'll definitely take that to heart. But yeah, thank you for the interview.
Absolutely.